The unexpected victory. The Kalthari Empire had conquered 47 star systems in 3 decades. Their warships were legends of destruction, their generals worshipped as gods of battle. When Ambassador Sienna Vex stepped onto the obsidian platform of their capital world, Drakmar, she carried nothing but a leather briefcase and a tired smile. Commander Zekthorn, adorned in ceremonial armor that had seen actual combat, towered over her. His 4 arms gestured dismissively at the human delegation. "Your species wishes to negotiate trade?" His translator rendered his amusement clearly. "The Terran Collective owns 7 systems. 7. We could take them in a solar week." Sienna adjusted her glasses, an affectation she maintained despite perfect vision, and smiled warmly. "Absolutely, Commander. But why expend the resources when we can offer something better? Better than conquest? Partnership." She opened her briefcase, producing a stack of documents that made Zekthorn's tactical implant flash warning signals. "We've prepared preliminary trade agreements, resource-sharing frameworks, joint infrastructure development proposals, and cultural exchange programs. All with favorable terms for the Empire, naturally." Zekthorn's mandibles clicked in confusion. "This is bureaucracy." "This is opportunity," Sienna corrected gently. "May I present our proposal to the High Council?" 3 hours later, the Kalthari High Council sat in stunned silence. Sienna's assistant, Marcus Chin, had projected holographic charts showing economic projections, trade routes, and resource optimization that made their conquest-based expansion look primitive by comparison. "If you conquer our systems," Sienna explained, gesturing to a particularly damning comparison chart, "you gain raw materials and 7 terraformed worlds." "Excellent. However, you also gain occupation costs, resistance suppression expenses, infrastructure repair, and the loss of our technological expertise. Our actuaries estimate it would cost the Empire 4.7 trillion credits over the next decade." High Counselor Vrakesh, an ancient warrior whose scales bore the scars of 100 campaigns, leaned forward. "And your proposal?" "Free trade agreement, mutual defense pact, and shared technological development. Cost to the Empire, 0 credits. Benefit: access to human computational technology, agricultural efficiency, and administrative systems that would reduce your current governmental overhead by 32%. We save you money while making you richer." Counselor Drainax, who managed the Empire's treasury, was already reviewing the documents on his data slate. His crest had flushed the pale blue of intense interest. These efficiency projections, if accurate, would fund 3 new fleets within 2 cycles. "They're conservative estimates," Marcus interjected. "Humans specialize in optimization." Zekthorn slammed a fist on the council table. "This is madness. We are conquerors. Warriors. You would have us become accountants." "Wealthy accountants," Sienna said cheerfully. "Commander, your military prowess is legendary. But consider, with the resources our partnership would free up, you could expand your fleets by 40%. Conquer systems you've only dreamed of reaching. We handle the boring administrative work, you focus on what you do best." The commander paused, his tactical mind engaging with the possibilities. Vrakesh studied Sienna with ancient, calculating eyes. "You offer us the galaxy on a spreadsheet." "We offer you the galaxy without the paperwork," Sienna corrected. "Let us be honest, High Counselor. War is expensive. Victory is expensive. Occupation is expensive. But cooperation? Cooperation is profitable. And if we refuse?" Drainax asked, though his tone suggested he already opposed that option. Sienna's smile never wavered. "Then we respectfully withdraw and await your invasion. Though I should mention that our tax code alone has 17 million subsections. Our regulatory framework requires 12 years of study for basic certification. The paperwork to properly process a conquered human world." She produced another document stack. "Well, let's just say our bureaucracy has repelled more aggressive intentions than our military ever could." Zekthorn examined the document. His translator struggled with terms like subparagraph addendum clause and reciprocal regulatory compliance framework. His expression shifted from confusion to horror. "This is psychological warfare," he accused. "This is Tuesday for us," Marcus said with a shrug. The council requested a recess to discuss the proposal. As Sienna and Marcus waited in the antechamber, the younger man grinned. "Think they'll bite?" Sienna watched through the chamber's crystal walls as the counselors argued over the projections. Drainax was already pointing to budget allocations. Vrakesh was nodding slowly. Even Zekthorn seemed to be reconsidering, likely calculating how many additional warships he could commission with freed resources. "They'll bite," Sienna said confidently. "They always do. Warriors dream of glory. But accountants? Accountants dream of quarterly reports that exceed projections. And we just showed them the most beautiful quarterly report in galactic history." 3 hours later, the Calthari Empire signed its first treaty with the Terran Collective. Not a surrender. Not a vassalage. A partnership. The conquest had begun. They just didn't realize it yet. The Integration Protocol. 6 months after the treaty signing, Director Helena Okafor arrived on Drakmar with 47 administrative specialists and enough filing equipment to fill 3 cargo transports. Commander Zekthorn watched the procession with growing unease. "This is the minimal integration team you promised?" he demanded. Helena, a woman whose immaculate suits and perfect posture radiated competence, consulted her tablet. "Minimal for initial phase implementation, Commander. Once we've established baseline protocols, we'll reduce to a core team of 20. Possibly 15 depending on your existing infrastructure." "Protocols?" Zekthorn repeated the word like a curse. "Oh yes, many protocols." Helena smiled with the serenity of someone who had single-handedly reorganized the Terran colonial administration. "Shall we begin with the economic integration framework?" What followed was, by Calthari standards, an invasion more thorough than any military campaign. Helena's team embedded themselves in every level of imperial administration. Junior analyst Raj Patel spent 3 weeks with the Imperial Treasury, politely pointing out that their accounting system was tracking 17 different currencies using a method that hadn't been updated in 4 centuries. His minor suggestions streamlined the entire financial infrastructure. Logistics specialist Yuki Tanaka revolutionized the Empire's supply chains. "You're routing military provisions through 14 intermediary stations," she explained to an increasingly bewildered Drainax. "Our modeling shows you can eliminate 11 of them, reduce transit time by 60%, and cut costs by 2.3 trillion credits annually." "How is this possible?" the counselor asked. Yuki pulled up her simulation. "Humans have been optimizing logistics since we invented trade routes. We've had 5,000 years to perfect moving things efficiently. Would you like to see the algorithm?" Within weeks, Imperial efficiency began improving at rates that startled even the Calthari. Warship construction that had taken 18 months now completed in 14. Conquered worlds that had required brutal military occupation for years were now administered smoothly with half the garrison forces. But Zekthorn remained suspicious. He confronted Helena in her temporary office, a commandeered war room now filled with filing cabinets and productivity charts. "You're weakening us," he accused. "Making us dependent on your systems." Helena looked up from her review of Imperial procurement processes. "Commander, your fleet capacity has increased 22%. Your conquest of the Vrel system last month required 30% fewer resources than projected. Your own officers are reporting higher satisfaction due to reduced administrative burden. How precisely are we weakening you? You're making us civilian. We're making you efficient." Helena stood, walking to a holographic display of the Empire's territory. "Commander, let me show you something. This is the Calthari Empire 6 months ago." The display showed 47 systems connected by military supply lines and occupation forces. "And this is the Empire now." The display transformed. The same systems, but now connected by trade routes, civilian administrative networks, and economic partnerships. Conquered worlds showed green indicators instead of red military alerts. "You've pacified our conquests," Zekthorn observed, his tone accusatory. "We've integrated them," Helena corrected. "Those red indicators? Those were resistance movements, occupation costs, garrison expenses. Each one draining resources from your expansion efforts. The green indicators represent worlds that are now economically productive, politically stable, and actually contributing to imperial growth instead of requiring constant military intervention." She pulled up another chart. "Your conquest of the Vrel system. Under previous occupation protocols, you would have needed 80,000 troops maintaining order for approximately 7 years, at a cost of 900 billion credits. Under our administrative integration, you need 12,000 peacekeeping forces for approximately 18 months, at a cost of 140 billion credits. The Vrel are already requesting full imperial citizenship and trade status." Zekthorn's tactical implant processed the numbers. "They want to join us? People don't resist efficient government, Commander. They resist oppression. We've shown the Vrel, and your other conquered worlds, that imperial membership means economic opportunity, infrastructure development, and actual representation in governance. Why would they resist that? This is not conquest, Zekthorn said, though his certainty was wavering. Helena smiled. No, Commander. It's better than conquest. It's sustainable expansion. Your military takes the systems. We make them want to stay. Together, we're building something unprecedented. An empire that actually functions. That evening, High Counselor Vrakesh summoned Helena to the council chambers. She arrived to find the ancient warrior studying economic reports with an expression she couldn't quite read. Director Okafor, he began, his voice carrying centuries of command. In my youth, I conquered 17 systems personally. Brutal campaigns each one. Millions dead, decades of occupation. He gestured to her charts. You've integrated 12 systems in 6 months with 14 casualties, all accidental. How? Helena met his gaze steadily. Because we're not conquerors, High Counselor. We're administrators. And administration, done properly, is more powerful than any weapon. Vrakesh considered this. The humans are conquering us, aren't they? We prefer to think of it as hostile optimization, Helena replied with a slight smile. The High Counselor's scales rippled in what might have been Kalthari laughter. The bureaucratic revolution. The crisis began when the Kalthari Empire attempted to conquer the Thorian Confederacy, a loose alliance of 19 industrial worlds known for their stubborn independence and formidable defensive fleets. Admiral Krivak led the assault with characteristic Kalthari aggression. 3 weeks of brutal combat resulted in a stalemate that was bleeding both sides dry. From her office on Drakmar, Helena received the casualty reports with growing concern. She contacted Sienna Vex, now serving as the Terran Collective's chief diplomatic liaison. We need to intervene. Sienna reviewed the tactical data. The Thorians won't surrender to military force. Their entire culture is built on resistance to external control. Then we don't give them external control, Helena said. We give them a merger. 24 hours later, diplomatic specialist Kenji Sato arrived in the Thorian system aboard an unarmed civilian transport. The Thorian Defense Council, led by Chancellor Mira Thex, received him with suspicion barely concealed behind diplomatic courtesy. The Kalthari sent a human? Thex's crystalline features reflected her confusion. To negotiate our surrender? Kenji set down his briefcase with practiced ease. Not a surrender, Chancellor. A proposition. The Kalthari have agreed to a ceasefire while we discuss alternatives to this expensive conflict. There are no alternatives. We will not become imperial subjects. What if you didn't have to? Kenji produced a document. What if, instead, the Kalthari Empire became subject to Thorian economic governance? The silence in the chamber was absolute. Kenji continued, warming to his presentation. The Empire's weakness isn't military, it's economic sophistication. The Thorian Confederacy, however, has the most advanced financial systems in this sector. What if, instead of the Empire conquering you, you simply regulated them? Thex's chief economist, a pragmatic individual named Dorn, leaned forward. Explain. Joint Economic Union. The Empire gets access to Thorian industrial capacity and financial expertise. The Thorians get access to imperial markets and resources. But here's the key. All economic policy is determined by a joint council with Thorian majority voting rights on fiscal matters. That would make us their economic masters, Dorn said slowly. Correct. They conquer through military might. You conquer through fiscal policy. Everyone wins. Kenji pulled up projections. Under current conflict trajectory, the Thorians face 17 more years of warfare, estimated 3.4 million casualties and economic devastation. Under this proposal, you face 0 casualties, immediate economic growth, and effective control over imperial economic policy. Thex studied the human carefully. Why would the Kalthari agree to this? Because, Kenji said with a slight smile, we've convinced them it was their idea. On Drakmar, Helena was indeed presenting the proposal to the High Council as an aggressive economic expansion strategy. The Thorian conflict is costly, she explained to Councillor Drainax, who had become her primary ally. But the Thorians possess financial expertise that could triple imperial revenue within 5 years. Instead of conquering them, we bring them into the fold as economic administrators. We would be ceding control, Zekthorn protested, though his objections had become more procedural than passionate over the months. We would be delegating responsibility, Helena corrected. The Empire remains sovereign. The military remains yours. You simply allow Thorian experts to optimize your economic systems. Think of it as outsourcing. Vrakesh, who had been quietly reviewing the proposal, finally spoke. You're turning our empire into a corporation. A very profitable corporation, Drainax interjected, pointing to the revenue projections. These numbers are conservative, Helena assured him. The Thorians are financial geniuses. They'll make the empire wealthier than any conquest could. The vote was closer than Helena had hoped, but the proposal passed. Zekthorn abstained, a compromise Helena considered a victory. 2 weeks later, the Treaty of Thoria was signed. The Thorian Confederacy joined the Kalthari Empire as an autonomous economic zone with joint governance over imperial fiscal policy. No shots were fired. No worlds were burned. Just signatures on documents and handshakes between former enemies. That night, as Helena and Kenji celebrated in a Drakmar bar that catered to the growing human population, the younger diplomat raised his glass. To conquest through committee meetings. Helena clinked her glass against his. The most powerful weapon humanity ever invented. The consensus-building framework. The Kalthari still don't realize what's happening, do they? Helena glanced around the bar, noting Kalthari officers socializing peacefully with Thorian traders, all of them excitedly discussing the new economic opportunities. They're beginning to. But by the time they fully understand, they'll be too prosperous to care. Across the bar, she noticed Zekthorn sitting alone, reviewing a data pad. The commander looked up, meeting her gaze. For a moment, understanding passed between them. He knew what the humans were doing. And yet he returned to his data pad, reading what appeared to be a logistics optimization report. Even the warriors were becoming administrators. The conquest was ahead of schedule. The cultural integration. Dr. Amara Osei, chief of the Terran Cultural Exchange Program, arrived on the imperial world of Korvath with a team of sociologists, artists, and what she cheerfully called soft power specialists. Governor Thaurex, a veteran of 12 conquest campaigns, greeted them with barely disguised contempt. More humans, he growled. Coming to optimize our culture now? Amara smiled with the patience of someone who had introduced democracy to 4 formerly autocratic systems. Not optimize, Governor. Enhance. We're here to facilitate cultural exchange. We do not need human culture. Of course not. That's why we're here to learn from you. Amara produced a small recorder. Your warrior traditions, your conquest histories, your artistic expressions. Humanity finds them fascinating. We'd like to document them, share them with the wider galaxy. With your permission, naturally. Thaurex's suspicion wavered. You want to learn our ways? Desperately. The Kalthari warrior tradition is unparalleled. We have universities back home that would love to study it. 3 months later, Korvath had become an unexpected cultural hub. Amara's team had established the first Kalthari Cultural Center, where warrior traditions were documented, celebrated, and shared across the growing empire. But something unexpected was happening. Young Kalthari warriors, proud of their heritage being recognized, began attending cultural exchange events. They met Thorian artists, human musicians, and representatives from a dozen other integrated species. They discovered that other cultures also had warrior traditions, artistic expressions, and proud histories. Sergeant Keksal, a promising young officer, found himself debating military philosophy with a human historian named Dr. Paul Adeyemi. Your species has never been conquered, Keksal observed. Paul laughed. Oh, we've conquered each other plenty. Thousands of years of warfare. We just eventually learned that cooperation was more profitable. Profitable, Keksal repeated. The human word for everything. Not everything. Sometimes we do things because they're right. Sometimes because they're beautiful. Sometimes because they make life better. Paul gestured to the cultural center around them. This, for instance, not particularly profitable. But it's bringing people together. Keksal considered this. Why does your species care about bringing people together? Because we're better together than apart. Stronger. Smarter. Happier. Paul pulled up images on his tablet, Earth's history of conflict, followed by images of the Terran Collective's diverse worlds. We learned this the hard way. Hopefully you can learn it the easy way. The cultural exchange was having unexpected effects throughout the empire. Kalthari youth were beginning to question whether every problem required military solutions. Thorian traders were adopting Kalthari efficiency practices. Human administrative techniques were being taught in imperial academies. Commander Zekthorn finally confronted Amara at a cultural festival celebrating the anniversary of the Imperial Thorian merger. You're diluting our culture, he accused, gesturing to the mixed crowd of celebrating species. Amara watched a Kalthari child teaching a human child a traditional warrior dance. Am I? Or am I spreading it? That child there is learning your traditions. She'll take them back to her human colony world. Your culture will influence an entire generation of human children. Is that dilution or expansion? It's not conquest. No, Amara agreed. It's something better. It's voluntary adoption. People choosing to embrace your culture because they find value in it. That's more powerful than any forced assimilation. Zekthorn watched the dancing children. You're making us all the same. We're making you all connected. There's a difference. Amara gestured to the festival. Look around, Commander. See the Thorian merchants wearing Kalthari honor marks? The Kalthari warriors studying human philosophy? The mixed species trade delegations? This isn't homogenization. It's synthesis. And humans benefit how? Amara's smile was knowing. Commander, humanity learned something important in our development. The species that controls the culture controls the future. Not through force, through influence. Right now, human administrative systems are being adopted across the empire. Human languages are becoming trade standards. Human cultural values are spreading through voluntary exchange. You're conquering us through music and art. We're integrating with you through mutual appreciation. When your grandchildren speak Terran Standard as fluently as Kalthari, when they celebrate both human and Kalthari holidays, when they see cooperation as natural as conflict, who has conquered whom? Zekthorn was silent for a long moment. Then he surprised her. My daughter has requested assignment to a human university. To study xenosociology. What did you tell her? I approved it. He met Amara's gaze. Because a wise warrior must understand their enemy. And I'm beginning to realize that humans are the most dangerous enemy the Kalthari have ever faced. Because you're making us not want to fight you. Amara raised her glass. To dangerous enemies, Commander. Zekthorn touched his glass to hers. To conquest through cooperation, Director. Across the festival, High Counselor Vrakesh watched the exchange with ancient, knowing eyes. He turned to Helena, who had joined him on the observation platform. Your species has infiltrated every level of our society, he observed quietly. Helena didn't deny it. Yes, High Counselor. And we welcomed you in. Also yes. Vrakesh's scales rippled. Brilliant. The galactic expansion. 2 years after the initial treaty, the Kalthari Empire, now officially the Kalthari-Terran Cooperative Alliance, had expanded to include 73 systems. What made this remarkable was that only 3 had been taken through military conquest. The other 23 had applied for membership. Ambassador Sienna Vex stood before the Galactic Assembly, a loose confederation of independent systems that had watched the Alliance's growth with increasing alarm. The Assembly's speaker, a Valdrosian named Corinne, addressed her with poorly concealed hostility. The Alliance is expanding too rapidly. Many systems fear this is conquest by another name. Sienna projected a holographic chart. Speaker, I understand the concern. Let me show you our expansion metrics. Of the 23 systems that joined in the past year, 17 approached us first. For we approached with partnership offers. 2 were former Kalthari military targets that chose diplomatic integration instead. 0 were conquered. Semantics, grumbled Representative Vorin AK of the Hesh Dominion. You offer them economic prosperity they cannot refuse. It's coercion. It's opportunity, Sienna corrected. The Vrelian Republic joined us 6 months ago. Their economy has grown 47%. Their citizens have access to imperial markets, Thorian financial services, and human technological support. Is it coercion to offer mutual benefit? Marcus Chin stepped forward with additional data. We've prepared transparency reports for the Assembly. Full economic data, citizen satisfaction surveys, and governmental autonomy metrics for all Alliance members. You'll find that member systems retain sovereignty over internal affairs, cultural practices, and local governance. They simply participate in a cooperative framework for trade, defense, and development. Corinne studied the data skeptically. And what does humanity gain from this arrangement? Stability, Sienna said simply. Access to markets. Cultural exchange. Scientific collaboration. The same things every member gains. We're not building an empire, we're building a community. A community that coincidentally spreads human influence across the galaxy, Vorin AK observed. Sienna didn't deny it. Yes. Just as it spreads Kalthari military doctrine, Thorian financial practices, and Vrelian agricultural techniques. We're all influencing each other. That's what happens in genuine cooperation. The Assembly voted to establish a monitoring committee to observe alliance expansion. Siena considered it a victory, engagement rather than opposition. But the real challenge came from within. The Kalthari military faction, led by General Moxkar, had grown increasingly restless. At a joint session of the Alliance Council, he finally voiced his frustration. "We have become soft," he declared, his forearms gesturing emphatically. "Our warriors spend more time in trade negotiations than combat training. We manage supply chains instead of conquest campaigns. This is not the Kalthari way." Helena Okafor, now serving as Alliance Operations Director, responded calmly. "General, the Alliance controls 73 systems. The Kalthari Empire at its peak controlled 47. How is expansion by 45% in 2 years considered soft? Because it's not real expansion. It's sustainable growth," suggested Drainax, who had fully embraced the new economic model. "General, our military strength has increased 38%. Our economy has grown by 200%. Our citizens enjoy unprecedented prosperity. Please explain how this is weakness." Moxkar slammed a fist on the council table. "Because we have lost ourselves. The Kalthari were warriors, conquerors. Now we are merchants and bureaucrats." High Counselor Vrakesh, who had remained silent, finally spoke. "General Moxkar, I was already a decorated warrior when you were born. I have conquered more systems than you have visited. Do you dare suggest I have gone soft?" The chamber fell silent. Moxkar's scales paled. "No, High Counselor. You merely fail to understand that we have not abandoned conquest. We have perfected it." Vrakesh stood, his ancient frame still imposing. "When I conquered the Drelian system, I fought for 3 years. Millions died. When the fighting ended, the Drelians resisted for 2 decades. It cost us countless resources and lives." He pulled up a display showing the recent integration of the Mirasan Commonwealth. When the Mirasan applied for alliance membership last month, the integration took 14 days. 0 casualties. They are now productive members contributing to our strength. Tell me, General, which is superior conquest? Moxkar struggled to respond. Vrakesh continued, "The humans taught us something we warriors were too proud to see. True conquest is not making enemies submit, it is making them want to join you. The Empire conquered through fear and force. The Alliance conquers through prosperity and partnership. And we expand faster, farther, and more permanently than we ever did through war." He turned to Helena. "Director Okafor, please show the General the expansion projections." Helena brought up a holographic model. "Current trajectory suggests the Alliance will encompass 300 systems within 5 years. At our previous conquest rate, the Empire would have needed 40 years and countless wars to reach that number. General, you're not commanding a weaker empire, you're commanding a more efficient one." Moxkar studied the projections, his tactical training engaging with the strategic implications. 300 systems, he murmured. "With military forces 40% larger than current levels," Helena added. "All funded by the economic growth from integration. General, if you want military expansion, this is how you achieve it. Not through expensive wars, but through partnerships that make us stronger." Siena, monitoring the meeting remotely, smiled. The military faction's resistance was crumbling. Not through argument, but through numbers. Warriors understood numbers. The resistance came from an unexpected quarter. The Syndicate of Free Worlds, a coalition of 14 fiercely independent systems, began actively opposing alliance expansion. Their leader, Director Kane Volker, was a former corporate executive who had built his power on maintaining profitable chaos. "The alliance is a threat to freedom," he declared in a broadcast that reached half the galaxy. "They promise prosperity while stealing sovereignty. Join them and you become another cog in their machine." The message resonated with systems wary of the alliance's rapid growth. Applications for membership slowed. Some prospective members withdrew their applications entirely. In the alliance headquarters on Drakmar, now a gleaming complex that blended Kalthari architecture with human efficiency, the leadership convened to address the crisis. "Volker is effective," admitted Kenji Sato, reviewing the propaganda analysis. "He's framing integration as loss of identity. It's emotionally powerful. Because it contains truth," Zekthorn said, surprising everyone. The commander had largely accepted the alliance model, but he maintained his directness. "Systems do change when they join. The question is whether that change is beneficial." Helena nodded. "Zekthorn is right. We need to address this directly, not dismiss it. She turned to Amara. What's our cultural impact assessment showing? Amara pulled up detailed data. Mixed. Local cultures are being influenced by alliance standards. That's unavoidable with integration. But we're also seeing cultural renaissance in member systems. The Vrelian artistic movement has exploded. Thorian philosophy is experiencing a golden age. Kalthari warrior traditions are being celebrated across the galaxy. But Volker's narrative is simpler, Marcus observed. Join the alliance, lose yourself. It's easier to understand than our nuanced reality. Sienna studied the problem from multiple angles. We can't out-propagandize Volker. He spent decades mastering manipulation. We need a different approach. Military action, suggested Moxcar hopefully. Demonstration, Sienna corrected. We need to show systems what alliance membership actually looks like. Not through our words, but through our members' voices. 3 weeks later, the alliance launched the Voices of Integration initiative. Member systems were invited to share their experiences directly with the galaxy. The results were unexpected even to the organizers. Chancellor Thex of the Thorian Confederacy gave an impassioned speech. Before integration, we feared losing our identity to the Kalthari military machine. Instead, we found that our economic expertise was valued and elevated. We didn't lose ourselves, we gained influence. Our financial systems now shape alliance policy. That's not submission. That's partnership. A Vrelian agricultural collective representative explained, our farming techniques were considered primitive by galactic standards. The alliance provided us with Kalthari distribution networks and human agricultural technology. Now our food feeds 73 systems, and our methods are being studied across the galaxy. We've never been more authentically Vrelian, or more successful. Even Kalthari voices joined the chorus. A young officer named Trell9, daughter of a prominent warrior family, recorded a message that went viral. My grandfather conquered 12 systems through war. I've helped integrate 8 systems through cooperation. He is proud of me, not because I've abandoned warrior traditions, but because I've found a more effective way to expand our civilization. Strength isn't just about how hard you hit. It's about building something that lasts. Volker countered with accusations of propaganda and coercion. But his message was losing power against the genuine testimonials. The crisis point came when the Hesh Dominion, one of Volker's strongest allies, quietly approached the alliance with an integration proposal. Representative Voronake met with Sienna in a neutral location, his earlier hostility replaced with pragmatic calculation. Your demonstration was effective. My people have seen what alliance membership provides. The syndicate won't be pleased, Sienna observed. The syndicate doesn't feed my people or protect our trade routes. Director Volker's freedom is the freedom to struggle alone. I choose partnership. The hashed integration dealt a critical blow to Volker's coalition. Other syndicate members began questioning whether resistance was worth the lost opportunities. But Volker wasn't finished. He made one final play, reaching out directly to the Kalthari military faction. General Moxcar, his encrypted message read, "You know what's happening. The humans are using your empire as a tool for their expansion. Every partnership spreads their influence, not yours. The alliance isn't Kalthari-led. It's human-directed, using Kalthari strength as a facade. Reclaim your empire before it's too late." Moxcar brought the message to Vrakesh. The High Counselor read it carefully, then looked at the general. "What do you think?" "I think." Moxcar paused, considering. "I think Volker is right about human influence spreading. But wrong about what it means." "Explain." "The alliance has Kalthari strength, Thorian wisdom, and human efficiency. Remove any piece and it weakens. The humans haven't conquered us. We've all conquered together." He looked at Vrakesh directly. "And together we're unstoppable." Vrakesh's scales rippled with satisfaction. "Then we have truly integrated, General." They sent Volker's message to Helena, who read it with Sienna and Marcus. "He tried to divide us," Marcus observed. "He failed," Sienna said, "because we've already won. Not by defeating our opponents, but by making our partners see their success as our success." Helena smiled. "The conquest is complete. They defend it themselves now." The New Galaxy, 800 words. 5 years after the initial treaty, the alliance encompassed 247 systems. The Syndicate of Free Worlds had dissolved, with most members joining the alliance or forming cooperative partnerships. Kane Volker had retired to a comfortable life on a neutral world, his resistance movement remembered as a historical footnote. The Galactic Assembly now met in the alliance headquarters, having relocated from their traditional neutral ground. Speaker Corinne, who had once questioned the alliance's motives, now served as liaison between the Assembly and the Alliance Council. In her office overlooking the glittering cityscape of Drakmar, Ambassador Sienna Vex prepared her final report to the Terran Collective Council. She was retiring after 7 years of service, ready to return to Earth and teach the next generation of diplomats. Helena Okafor knocked and entered. "Last day nostalgia?" Sienna smiled. "Something like that. I keep thinking about that first meeting with Zek Thorne. How certain he was that conquest only came through war. And now?" Helena settled into a chair. "Now he's teaching joint military doctrine at the Alliance Academy. His course on sustainable imperial expansion is the most popular in the curriculum." They shared a laugh. Zek Thorne's transformation from skeptic to advocate had been gradual but complete. The commander had finally understood that the bureaucratic conquest was real, and more effective than any military campaign. High Counselor Vrakesh made his final public appearance that day. At nearly 400 years old, he had decided to retire to his ancestral holdings. The ceremony was attended by representatives from every alliance member system. "I have spent 300 years as a warrior and politician," he told the assembled crowd. "I have seen the rise and fall of empires, the glory and futility of conquest. And I have learned that the greatest victory is not defeating your enemies, it is making them your friends." He looked directly at the human delegation. "When the humans arrived, I thought them weak. They carried papers instead of weapons. They spoke of trade instead of tribute. I did not understand that they were offering us something more valuable than surrender, they were offering us evolution. The Kalthari Empire conquered through force. The Alliance conquers through partnership. We have not abandoned our strength, we have multiplied it. Every system that joins makes us stronger. Every culture that integrates enriches us. Every species that partners with us expands our possibilities." He paused, his ancient eyes scanning the crowd. "Humanity taught us that true power is not the ability to destroy, it is the ability to build. And together we have built something unprecedented. A galactic civilization that grows stronger through cooperation, not conflict." The applause was thunderous, multi-species, genuine. Later, at a private gathering, the key architects of the Alliance assembled one final time. Sienna, Helena, Marcus, Kenji, Amara and Raj joined Vrakesh, Zek Thorne, Drainax, Thex and representatives from dozens of member species. "To the conquest," Vrakesh proposed, raising his glass. "To the bureaucracy," Helena added with a grin. "To partnership," Thex suggested. "To all of it," Sienna concluded. "To the recognition that we're stronger together than apart. That cooperation beats conflict. That the pen is mightier than the sword, especially when backed by spreadsheets." Laughter rippled through the gathering. Zek Thorne approached Sienna. "Ambassador, a question." "Of course, Commander." "That first day with your briefcase and your charts, did you know how this would end?" Sienna considered the question carefully. "I knew that humanity had learned something important. That systems built on mutual benefit last longer than systems built on force. That people work harder for themselves than for conquerors. That integration beats subjugation, every time." "But did you know we would agree?" "No," Sienna admitted. "But I knew you were intelligent enough to recognize a better option when presented with one. The Kalthari were never weak, Commander. You were just using expensive methods to achieve expansion. We offered you cheaper ones. And now humans influence every aspect of Alliance policy. And Kalthari military doctrine shapes our defense strategy. And Thorian economics drives our prosperity. And Vrelian agriculture feeds our populations." Sienna met his gaze steadily. "We've all conquered each other, Commander. We've all been conquered by each other. That's what makes it work." Zek Thorne's mandibles clicked in amusement. "My grandchildren speak 3 languages fluently, Kalthari, Terran and Thorian. They study human philosophy and Kalthari warrior traditions. They dream of serving in the Alliance diplomatic corps. And I am prouder of them than I was of any conquest I achieved through war." He raised his glass. "To bureaucracy, Ambassador. The most powerful weapon in the galaxy." Outside, Drakmar sparkled with lights from 100 species, all living, working and thriving together. The Kalthari Empire had conquered 47 systems in 30 years. The Alliance had integrated 247 in 5 years. The galaxy had been conquered, not through war but through spreadsheets, trade agreements and cultural exchange programs. The humans had shown everyone a simple truth. You don't need to defeat your enemies if you can make them your partners. You don't need to destroy civilizations if you can integrate them. You don't need weapons if you have forms in triplicate. The empire had conquered through war. Humanity had conquered through bureaucracy. And together they had conquered the galaxy through cooperation.